Did you know that there are some foods which you can take and they increase your risk of getting diabetes? And also when you have diabetes, they can worsen your diabetes? Well, in this video, we are going to look at some of the foods that are bad for your health, that can increase your risk of getting diabetes, or that are not good for you to take when you have diabetes. Hello, our dear viewers. I'm your physician, Dr. Andrew, to take you through once again, and welcome to our YouTube platform, Health Tips and Tricks, here to help you regarding your health. If you are new, kindly subscribe, and if you have missed our previous videos, check our site and view these videos to improve your knowledge about your health and your body. So, this is going to be a follow-up from what we talked about previously about the foods that are good for you and that will help you prevent diabetes, and also the foods that can be helpful for you if you already have diabetes. So this time we are going to talk about the foods that are not recommended, the foods that are bad, that will increase your risk of getting diabetes, and also the foods that are not good for you once you have diabetes disease. So which are these foods? So these are the foods which have a high glycemic index. Previously, we looked at the foods which have a low glycemic index as being good for you. Now, the foods which have a high glycemic index are not good for you. Why? Because these foods will raise your blood sugar significantly. We said glycemic index is the ability of a food to raise your blood sugar after you've eaten it. So these foods which have a high glycemic index are foods which raise your blood sugar by a significant amount once you eat them. So what will this do to you? If you're not diabetic, this will put a strain on your pancreas. And remember, like we said, as we age, our pancreatic function keeps on declining. And once we put further strain on it by eating these foods frequently, then we are at risk of progressing to diabetes. And then if you already have diabetes, again, this will also put a strain on your pancreas and will also interrupt your sugar control because it will cause high glucose excursions. So which foods are these? So like we said, these foods are mostly foods which have been processed. Any food which has been processed usually has a high glycemic index. For example, look at foods like bakery products. We have bread, cakes, pancakes, to mention but a few. So all these foods from the bakery have a high glycemic index because one, they are made from processed grain, and two, they are sweet. They really have glucose added in them. So most of these foods will have a high glycemic index and they will increase your blood sugar. Maybe to add, for each of these foods, we shall be giving you some alternatives which you can use. For example, if you are to take products from the bakery, then you can, for example, use whole grain bread, or what is called the brown bread. The bread which is brown and has fiber in it. That can be an alternative. But there are some things like cake, pancakes, which may not have alternatives as such. And these foods will raise your blood sugar significantly. We have some types of chocolates, foods in which sugar has been added from the factory. So all these have a high glycemic index and they are not good for you to take frequently if you are diabetic or if you want to prevent diabetes because they put a strain on your pancreas. And then we have, of course, other foods like starch foods. What kind of starch foods have high glycemic index? These are again starch foods which have sort of been processed also. For example, meal grain which is not whole. What do I mean by this? For example, the common food called posho or ugali. This food has been processed. Why? Because the fiber is removed and it is white posho. So this is not good for you because it will have a high glycemic index. Look at all these other cereals that have been processed. For example, wheat. Wheat that has been processed also through the factory also has a high glycemic index and is not good for you. Foods like other starch foods like Irish potatoes, these have a high glycemic index because they are lacking in fiber. So what are some of the alternatives? Alternatives can be starch foods which have high fiber content. For example, a sweet potato. Sweet potatoes are starch foods, but they do have a high fiber content. And this high fiber content makes them have a lower glycemic index, and these can be good alternatives. Then we talked about plantain or bananas, which some people eat as food, and these also have a low glycemic index because they are not in the cereal category as such. Then we have some dairy products. There are some dairy products which have a high glycemic index. For example, milk which has been sweetened, yogurt which has been sweetened. So some of these again have a high glycemic index. In the previous video we said milk was good. Yes, but this is milk which has not been processed, which has not been sweetened. We also said yogurt was also good, but this is yogurt which has not been sweetened. So once sweeteners are added, these foods develop a high glycemic index. And then we have cereals which have been processed, which we have talked about also under starch foods, but we can also look at them separately. For example, the cornflakes, the cereals which people eat, which have gone through factories and processing. These are also not good because they have a high glycemic index. Looking at beverages like soda, beer, these also have high glycemic index, and they are not good for a person who is diabetic or for a person who wants to prevent progression to diabetes. So in summary, we have looked at some of the foods that are not good for you once you're diabetic, and you have seen these are the foods which have a high glycemic index. For example, processed foods, foods from bakeries, foods from dairy products which have been sweetened, and from the bakery we include things like cake, things like white bread, things like pancakes. Then we have seen that beverages like soda, beer are also not good for you because they can raise your blood sugar significantly. Then we have seen that foods like starch foods which are low in fiber are also not good for you because they will also raise your blood sugar significantly. And we see that these are foods which you have to avoid if you want to prevent diabetes or if you want to keep healthy and maintain your blood sugar when you are already diabetic. Thank you very much. I hope this was helpful. I remain your physician, Dr. Andrew.